Alan Carter stared at his computer screen with wide eyes. The signal patterns didn't make sense at first, but after 3 days of work, he was sure. This wasn't random space noise. This was a message. "I need to call Susan," he whispered to himself, reaching for his phone with shaking hands. Colonel Susan Miller arrived at NASA's Communications Center within 2 hours. Her uniform was perfectly pressed despite the late hour. She looked over Alan's shoulder as he explained what he had found. "The signal repeats every 4 hours," Alan said. "It's definitely artificial and coming from just beyond Mars orbit." Susan frowned. "And you're certain it's not one of ours?" "Positive. The technology is. Well, it's nothing we can do." Alan pulled up another screen. "I managed to decode part of it. They call themselves the Vorn Imperium." Word spread quickly. Within a day, the president called an emergency meeting at the White House. Alan and Susan sat at a long table with military leaders, scientists, and UN Ambassador William Hayes. "We need to respond peacefully," Ambassador Hayes said. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. "This could be the greatest moment in human history." Susan shook her head. "Or our last. We know nothing about their intentions." "The signal includes coordinates for a communication frequency," Alan explained. "They want to talk to us." 3 days later, screens around the world showed the first images of the Vorn. They had blue skin that looked like metal and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The alien who spoke identified himself as High Commander Zextar of the Vorn Imperium. "People of Earth," the alien said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal, "your world has been noticed by the glorious Vorn Imperium. You will now receive the honor of joining our domain as a resource colony." Ambassador Hayes stepped forward to the communication array. "We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization, but Earth is home to billions of free people. We would prefer to establish diplomatic relations as equals." The alien made a sound like breaking glass. Alan realized it was laughter. "Equality? Your species has barely left its own atmosphere. Your technology is primitive. Your bodies are weak. The Vorn do not negotiate with lesser beings." The president stepped forward. "We decline your offer to become a colony. We are willing to establish trade and cultural exchange. But Earth will remain independent." The 4 eyes of the alien narrowed. "You misunderstand. This was not an offer. It was notification of your new status. Prepare your world for our arrival in 7 of your days." Susan rushed to the front. "And if we resist?" "Resistance has been attempted by 17 species before you," the alien said. "None exist anymore except as servants or specimens in our biological archives." The transmission continued for another hour. The Vorn detailed what they would take from Earth: water, minerals, and biological samples. Humans would be allowed to live if they served well. After the alien finished, world leaders gathered in emergency session. Military bases went on high alert. People around the world panicked as news spread. 6 days later, Ambassador Hayes made one final attempt at communication. "High Commander, we urge you to reconsider. Humanity will not surrender its freedom. If you come in peace, we welcome you. If you come to conquer, we will defend our home." The alien's response was brief. "Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses will fail. Your species will serve as an example to others who might consider defiance." The transmission ended. In orbit around Earth, sensors detected objects moving at impossible speeds. They would arrive within hours. Colonel Susan looked at the radar screens and turned to Alan. "Send the alert. Tell everyone. They're coming." Alan sent the message to all military commands worldwide. First contact hostile. Invasion imminent. God help us all. The Vorn ships appeared in Earth's sky like new stars. Then they grew larger. Within minutes, they hung over major cities around the world, massive dark shapes that blocked the sun. Captain Jack Nelson was drinking coffee in his Chicago apartment when his phone rang. The voice of his commanding officer was tight with fear. "They're here, Nelson. Get to the base now." Jack looked out his window and saw it. A ship the size of a small town hovered over the city center. His coffee mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. He never made it to the base. The first attacks came without warning. Beams of blinding light shot down from the Vorn ships. Buildings turned to dust. The ground shook. Jack's car swerved off the road as a wave of heat washed over the city. Everyone moved south. He shouted to the stunned people on the street, away from downtown. Move now. Around the world, the same scene played out. New York, London, Beijing, Tokyo, Moscow. The centers of human civilization burned. Military bases were hit next. Aircraft carriers on the ocean vanished in flashes of light. Air Force jets exploded before they could take off. Dr. Lisa Wright was working late in her lab outside of Denver when the attacks began. The building shook. Emergency lights flashed. She grabbed her research and ran to the underground levels. "What's happening?" she asked a security guard who rushed past her. "Aliens," he said. "They're destroying everything." Lisa made it to the bunker level where other scientists gathered around screens showing news feeds from around the world. One by one, the feeds went dark as cities fell. "We need to save what we can," Lisa said. "Research, data, everything. If they want to destroy us, they'll have to do it while we learn about them." 3 days after the first attacks, a small Vorn scout ship crashed in the mountains near Lisa's lab. A team was sent to investigate. "It's dead," the team leader reported over the radio. "But the ship is mostly intact." Lisa and a team of engineers worked around the clock studying the alien technology. They had to move twice as Vorn ground forces searched the area. "Look at this," Lisa said on the 5th day. She pointed to a section of the ship's communication array. "The way they transmit signals is unlike anything we've seen." In what remained of Houston, NASA engineer Kate Rodriguez made a similar discovery. Hidden in the basement of her home with salvaged equipment, she detected patterns in Vorn communications. "They use quantum frequencies," she told the other survivors hiding with her. "But there's a gap in their spectrum. I think I can exploit it." The Vorn moved methodically. First the cities, then military targets, then infrastructure. They set up bases near major water sources and mineral deposits. Their ground troops looked like their commander, blue metallic skin and 4 eyes. But they were bigger, with arms that ended in weapons. Survivors learned to stay hidden. Millions died in the first week, billions in the first month. Those who lived fled to mountains, forests, and deserts. Underground networks formed, sharing information through old radio technology the Vorn didn't bother to monitor. Captain Jack Nelson led a group of 300 survivors into the forests of Wisconsin. They built hidden shelters and learned to live without being detected. "They think they've won," Jack told his people one night. "They think we're beaten, but we're still here." Lisa Wright eventually connected with other scientists through encoded radio signals. They shared what they learned about Vorn technology. "Their ships have weaknesses," she said. "Their communication systems can be disrupted. We just need time." 6 months after the first attacks, Earth seemed defeated. The Vorn set up massive mining operations and began stripping the planet of resources. But beneath the surface, in hidden places around the world, humanity prepared. "We're not finished," Kate Rodriguez said as she completed work on a device that could intercept Vorn transmissions. "This is just the beginning." 6 months after the initial attack, Lieutenant Daniel Clark looked at his map by the light of a small fire. Marks showed Vorn bases across North America. He had similar maps for other continents, sent by radio from fellow resistance leaders. "They control the cities and the coasts," he told the 20 men and women gathered around him in the abandoned mine shaft. "But they can't be everywhere at once." Daniel had been on leave visiting his parents in rural Ohio when the invasion began. When he couldn't reach his unit, he started gathering survivors and teaching them to fight. "We hit this supply depot tomorrow," he said, pointing to a mark on the map. "Small teams. Get in, take what we need, and disappear. Across the world, similar scenes played out. Small groups of survivors learning to fight back against creatures that had destroyed their world. Patricia Davis had been a science officer in the Navy. Now she worked from a hidden bunker in what used to be Arizona, coordinating communication between resistance cells worldwide. "We need to be smart," she told the radio operators who worked with her. "The Vorn can track digital signals, but they ignore the old ways. Radio, Morse code, even written messages. These are our tools now." Patricia developed a system of codes and frequencies that changed daily. The Vorn couldn't break it because they didn't expect such simple technology to be a threat. In the Rocky Mountains, former Navy SEAL Ryan Taylor trained civilians to fight. Men and women who had been teachers, office workers, and store clerks learned to move silently through forests and set traps for alien patrols. "They're stronger than us," Ryan told his students. "They have better weapons, but they don't know this land like we do. They don't have our determination." The hardest lesson Ryan taught was patience. "We can't win in a day or a month," he said. "This is a long war. We wear them down. We learn their weaknesses." One such weakness was discovered by accident. A Vorn patrol near Seattle started showing strange symptoms after a rainstorm. Trouble breathing, slower movements. A doctor in the Resistance noticed it happened during certain weather conditions. "There's something in our air that affects them," the doctor reported. "Some mixture of moisture and microbes they're not immune to." This information spread through Patricia's network. Resistance fighters began to plan attacks during weather that weakened the aliens. Another weakness came from Lisa Wright's continued study of Vorn technology. The aliens needed specific minerals to power their weapons and ships. These minerals were exactly what they were mining Earth to obtain. "If we can disrupt their mining operations, we hurt their ability to fight," Lisa explained in coded messages sent to resistance leaders. Project Phoenix began 6 months and 3 days after the invasion. It wasn't one plan but many. Attacks on mining sites, interference with foreign communications, biological research into the aliens' vulnerabilities, and the gathering of their technology for study. Daniel led one of the first major strikes. His team infiltrated a Vorn mining operation in the former state of Colorado. They planted explosives at key points, then slipped away before detonation. "That's for Earth," Daniel whispered as the Vorn facility erupted in flames visible for miles. The aliens responded with brutal force. They burned forests and bombed mountain ranges where they suspected humans were hiding. But for every hideout they found, 3 more existed that they missed. Patricia's network grew stronger. Ryan's trained fighters became more effective. Lisa's research yielded more insights into Vorn weaknesses. 1 year after the invasion, humanity was still fighting. The Vorn had expected to find only ruins and slaves. Instead, they found an enemy that refused to surrender, that learned their ways, and that grew more dangerous with each passing day. "We need to send a message," Daniel told his fighters after a successful raid. "Not just to each other, but to them. They need to know that choosing Earth as an enemy was the biggest mistake they ever made." Dr. Samantha Wilson wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the alien device. For 3 months, she had worked in this hidden lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, trying to understand Vorn technology. "I think I've got something," she told her team of 5 other scientists. They gathered around her workstation, where parts of a Vorn communication device lay disassembled. Samantha pointed to strange markings inside the device. "These aren't just decorations. They're records. The Vorn keep histories in their machines." Using translation software developed from earlier captured technology, Samantha began to decode the markings. What she found chilled her. "Earth isn't their first conquest," she said. "According to this, they've destroyed 17 other civilizations." The record showed images of different worlds and species. Some looked almost human. Others were completely alien. All had been conquered by the Vorn Imperium. "They labeled Earth as an easy target because of our technology level," Samantha explained. "They expected us to surrender completely within 30 days. One of the other scientists laughed bitterly. They didn't understand who they were dealing with. Meanwhile, Resistance fighter Eric Johnson crawled through mud toward a Vorn outpost in what used to be Kansas. Rain poured down, making it hard to see but also weakening the alien guards. Eric had been a high school teacher before the invasion. Now he was one of the best scouts in Daniel Clark's resistance network. His mission: capture a working Vorn communication device. He waited until the alien guards showed signs of respiratory distress from the rain. Then he moved quickly, using a homemade stun weapon designed by Lisa Wright's team. The device sent out an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled Vorn neural systems. The guard collapsed without a sound. Eric grabbed the small device from the alien's belt and disappeared into the darkness. 3 days later, the device reached Kate Rodriguez, who had joined a large resistance group in the mountains of former California. "This is newer than the ones we studied before," she said as she carefully connected it to her equipment. "It should still be linked to their network." For days, Kate worked on breaking into the Vorn communication system. When she succeeded, a wealth of information poured in. "They're stretched thin," she reported to Patricia Davis over their secure radio network. "The Imperium covers hundreds of star systems, and they're facing problems on multiple fronts." Patricia passed this information to resistance leaders worldwide. "The Vorn never expected to need so many troops here," she explained. "They thought we would be easy to control." In the captured transmissions, the Vorn commanders expressed confusion about human resistance tactics. They couldn't understand why humans would sacrifice themselves for others, or how small groups could coordinate so effectively without central command. "They don't understand human adaptability," Samantha said when she saw the reports. "The Vorn evolved in a stable environment. They follow rigid patterns. When something unexpected happens, they struggle to adjust." This insight spread through resistance networks. Fighters began changing tactics frequently, never establishing patterns the Vorn could predict. Eric Johnson returned to Daniel Clark's base with more valuable information. "The aliens are importing resources from other worlds now," he reported. "Our attacks on their mining operations are working. They're having to bring in materials they expected to take from Earth." Daniel smiled. "Good. Let's make it even harder for them." 1 year and 2 months after the invasion, humanity had not only survived, but was beginning to push back. The knowledge that Earth was just one of many conquered worlds didn't discourage the resistance fighters. Instead, it strengthened their resolve. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," Samantha told her team as they worked to adapt Vorn technology for human use. "We're fighting for all the worlds they've destroyed. And we'll show them something those other species couldn't, that picking a fight with humans was the worst mistake they could make." 1 year into the Vorn occupation, humanity was ready to strike back. Commander Olivia Martinez stood in the underground bunker that served as resistance headquarters in the ruins of Boston. Around her, 30 fighters checked their weapons and equipment. "Today we take back our city," she told them. "The Vorn have set up their Eastern Command Center in the old financial district. We're going to destroy it." Olivia had been a police officer before the invasion. Now she led one of the largest resistance cells on the East Coast. Her fighters were a mix of former military, police, and ordinary people who had learned to fight. "Dr. Thompson's team has provided us with these," she said, holding up what looked like small glass vials. "They contain a biological agent that targets Vorn respiratory systems. Once released, keep your masks on for at least 30 minutes. Dr. George Thompson had spent months studying Vorn biology. His team discovered that the aliens were highly sensitive to certain bacteria common in Earth's soil. They had weaponized these bacteria into an airborne form. As night fell, Olivia's team moved through the ruins of Boston. They wore dark clothes and moved silently, avoiding Vorn patrols. When they reached the target building, they split into 5 groups. "Remember," Olivia said over their radio network, "timing is everything. We all strike at exactly 2300 hours. At the appointed time, explosions rocked the base of the Vorn Command Center. As alien troops rushed to respond, Olivia's team released the biological agent into the building's ventilation system. Within minutes, Vorn soldiers began to collapse, unable to breathe. Those who weren't affected immediately were disoriented, making them easy targets. The human fighters moved through the building, capturing technology and data before setting explosive charges. They were out before the Vorn could organize a proper response. Mission accomplished, Olivia reported as her team regrouped at their hidden base. Casualties minimal. Target destroyed. Similar attacks happened across the globe that same night. Resistance cells in former London, Moscow, Beijing, and dozens of other locations struck at Vorn installations. Not all succeeded, but enough did to send a message. Humanity was fighting back. Meanwhile, a different kind of victory was happening in the mountains of Colorado. Pilot Richard Evans and engineer Laura Collins stood before a captured Vorn scout ship. "It's ready," Laura said, running her hand along the smooth metal of the ship's hull. "We've replaced the damaged components and reconfigured the controls for human operation." Richard nodded. A former Air Force pilot, he had spent weeks learning to operate the alien craft in a flight simulator Laura's team had built. "If this works," he said, "we'll have our first air support since the invasion began." Laura activated the ship's power systems. The craft hummed to life, hovering slightly above the ground. Richard climbed into the modified cockpit. "Here goes nothing," he said, and guided the ship up through the hidden hangar doors and into the night sky. For the first time since the invasion, humans controlled a piece of Vorn technology that could match the aliens in the air. Within weeks, more captured ships were modified and more pilots trained. The Vorn response to these attacks was brutal but disorganized. They'd bombed areas where resistance fighters might be hiding, but their tactics were predictable, allowing humans to evacuate before strikes. Reports from Kate Rodriguez's intercepted communications revealed that the Vorn were confused by human adaptability. The aliens had never encountered a species that could learn their technology so quickly or adapt to their tactics so effectively. "They're calling for reinforcements," Kate told the Resistance Leadership Council during a secure radio meeting. "They've admitted to their high command that Earth is not the easy conquest they expected." Chief Engineer Paul Garcia brought more good news. His team had successfully combined Vorn technology with human weapons. "We've created hybrid weapons that are more effective against their armor," he explained, "and we're working on shields that can protect against their energy weapons." 1 year and 3 months after the invasion began, the tide was beginning to turn. The Vorn still held much of Earth, but they were losing ground and resources daily. "They thought we would be an example to others," Olivia told her fighters after their successful raid. "And we will be, just not the example they intended." Chief Engineer Paul Garcia held up the strange weapon for everyone to see. It looked like a human rifle, but with glowing blue parts taken from Vorn technology. "This hybrid weapon hits 5 times harder than anything we had before," he told the group of resistance leaders gathered in the underground facility, "and we can make more using parts from damaged Vorn equipment." Paul had been an engineering professor before the invasion. Now he led a team that combined human innovation with alien technology. The results were changing the war. "They'd stopped bringing their best tech to Earth," Paul explained. "They're afraid we'll capture it and use it against them. That tells us something important. They fear how quickly we learn." Reports from around the world confirmed this. The Vorn were changing tactics, pulling back their advanced weapons and ships. But it was too late. Humans had already captured enough alien technology to understand how it worked. The resistance network now spanned all continents. In Africa, fighters used the natural terrain to hide and strike. In Asia, vast underground networks moved people and supplies right under Vorn bases. In Europe, ancient tunnel systems became highways for resistance forces. The aliens called for reinforcements. New ships arrived in Earth orbit and landed fresh troops. But these reinforcements found themselves fighting an enemy that knew their weaknesses and exploited them ruthlessly. Admiral Helen Murphy coordinated the most daring attack yet from her hidden base in the ruins of San Diego. A former Navy officer, She now commanded a fleet of modified Vorn scout ships and human craft equipped with hybrid weapons. The Vorn flagship stays in low orbit over the Pacific, she explained to her pilots. They think they're safe up there. Today we proved them wrong. Richard Evans would lead the attack squadron. Our captured ships will approach using Vorn identification codes, he said. The rest of our forces will launch once we're in position. The plan was incredibly risky. If the Vorn discovered the deception too early, the entire attack force would be destroyed. But if it worked, humanity would strike a blow the aliens couldn't ignore. The day of the attack, 20 captured and modified Vorn ships left Earth's surface, using the aliens' own access codes. Behind them came 50 human aircraft equipped with hybrid weapons developed by Paul's team. The Vorn flagship was massive, a city in space that directed all enemy operations on Earth. As the human ships approached, the aliens didn't immediately recognize the threat. By the time alarms sounded, it was too late. All ships, attack now, Helen ordered over the secure channel. Richard led the first wave, targeting the flagship's communication arrays. Other ships hit weapon systems and engines. The human aircraft followed, firing missiles upgraded with Vorn technology. The flagship's defenses were strong, but the attack came from so many directions at once that they couldn't stop all of it. Explosions bloomed across the massive ship's hull. We've hit their main power core, Richard reported as his ship swooped away from a massive blast. The flagship didn't explode completely, but it listed in orbit, clearly damaged beyond quick repair. For the first time, humans had disabled a major Vorn vessel. The cost was high. Only 8 of the 20 modified alien ships returned. 32 of the human aircraft were lost. But the message was clear. Humanity could strike the Vorn anywhere, even in space. When news of the attack spread through resistance networks, celebrations erupted in hidden bases around the world. It was the first major defeat the Vorn had suffered in centuries of conquest. Kate Rodriguez intercepted Vorn communications after the attack. "They're in shock," she reported. "The flagship commander has been executed for failure. They can't believe we managed to get past their defenses." More importantly, the attack disrupted the Vorn command structure. With their flagship damaged, the aliens had to reorganize their forces. This gave resistance fighters time to strike at weakened outposts and capture more technology. 2 years after the invasion began, the Vorn Imperium faced something they had never encountered before. An invaded species that refused to be conquered and was becoming stronger rather than weaker as time passed. 3 years after the Vorn invasion, Earth was a battleground of determination. Craters marked where cities once stood. Forests had regrown over abandoned highways, and humans fought from the shadows, growing stronger each day. Captain Andrew Kelly studied the holographic map showing Vorn positions around the globe. The 3-dimensional display was itself built from captured alien technology, modified by human engineers. Their new command ship arrived last week, he told the assembled resistance leaders. "It's larger than the one we damaged last year, and they're keeping it in high orbit. They think it's beyond our reach." Andrew had been a Special Forces soldier before the invasion. Now he led one of the most elite strike teams in the resistance. His face bore scars from close encounters with Vorn weapons, and his left hand was a prosthetic built with hybrid technology. "We need to get aboard that ship," he said. "Our sources say the Vorn High Command is getting desperate. They're considering total planetary sterilization rather than admit defeat." Silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what that meant. The Vorn would rather destroy Earth completely than lose to a lesser species. "How do we get to a ship that won't come into low orbit?" asked one of the regional commanders. Michelle Roberts, their communications specialist, stepped forward. She had worked for a tech company before the war and now led the team that maintained the Resistance's global network. "We've intercepted their supply shuttle schedules," she said. "They send regular shipments to the command ship. If we can capture a supply shuttle, we can get a team aboard." The plan took shape over the next week. Andrew would lead a small team to infiltrate the Vorn command ship. Michelle would go with them to hack into the alien network. Their mission: to disable the ship's weapons and prevent the sterilization of Earth. Meanwhile, Dr. Benjamin Stone made a breakthrough that could change everything. In his lab beneath the ruins of a university, he held up a data crystal for his team to see. "This is it," he said with quiet pride. "A virus that can disable Vorn life support systems without harming humans. Once uploaded to their main network, it will spread to every ship in their fleet." Benjamin had been working on this for over a year, studying Vorn biology and technology to create something that would target only the invaders. The crystal contained code that would shut down the specific air mixtures and gravity settings that the Vorn needed to survive. The mission to upload the virus and the strike on the command ship were set for the same day. Resistance forces worldwide would launch simultaneous attacks on Vorn ground bases to prevent them from responding to the space mission. The day before the mission, leaders from around the world gathered on a secure channel. Colonel Susan Miller, one of the few high-ranking military officers to survive the initial invasion, addressed them all. 3 years ago, they came to our world thinking we would be an easy conquest, she said. They thought humans would surrender, become slaves, or die out quickly. Instead, we have shown them something they never expected: that humans don't give up. We adapt. We overcome. We fight back harder when pushed to the edge. Andrew's team prepared their equipment in silence. Each person checked weapons built from a mix of human ingenuity and Vorn technology. Each understood they might not return. Even if we succeed, the Vorn might still destroy Earth out of spite, Michelle said quietly as she loaded data tools into her pack. Andrew nodded. But we'll make sure it costs them everything. And maybe, just maybe, we can do more than just save Earth. His team looked at him questioningly. We know they've conquered other worlds, he explained. Other species who might still be fighting or waiting for a chance to rise up. What if we could send them a message? What if Earth's last act could be to light a fire across the entire Vorn Imperium? As dawn broke on what might be humanity's final day of resistance, millions of fighters around the world prepared for battle. Not just to defend their own lives, but to strike a blow for all the worlds that had fallen before them. The stolen Vorn supply shuttle approached the massive command ship hanging in Earth orbit. Inside, Captain Andrew Kelly and his 5-person team sat perfectly still as automated systems guided the craft toward the docking bay. Shuttle 247, requesting docking clearance, said the recorded Vorn voice from their captured communication system. After a tense moment, the command ship responded with a series of codes. The shuttle's computer translated them and continued the approach. They're not suspicious yet, Michelle Roberts whispered as she monitored the communications. Once we're inside, I'll need 3 minutes to access their network. The shuttle docked with a metallic clang. Andrew's team waited as cargo robots unloaded the supplies. Then they moved, using the shadows and their knowledge of Vorn ship layouts to avoid detection. Michelle found a data terminal in a quiet corridor. "Cover me," she said as she connected her equipment to the alien technology. Her fingers flew across the hybrid interface she had designed. "I'm in their system," she reported after 2 minutes. "Uploading Dr. Stone's virus now." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. "They'd detected us," Andrew said, raising his weapon. "Keep going. We'll hold them off." Michelle worked frantically as Vorn security forces converged on their position. Andrew and his team fought with everything they had, using the hybrid weapons that could penetrate Vorn armor. "Upload complete," Michelle announced. "The virus is spreading through their network, but there's something else we can do." She pointed to her screen where a map of the ship appeared. "That's their main communication array. It's powerful enough to reach every corner of their empire. If we can send a message." Andrew understood immediately. "We can tell every conquered world how to fight back." They fought their way to the communication center, losing 2 team members in the process. The virus was already working. Many Vorn soldiers struggled to breathe as their life support systems failed. When they reached the communication center, Michelle pushed aside the body of a Vorn operator and took control of the system. "What do we send?" she asked as Andrew and his remaining teammates secured the doors. "Everything," he replied. "Our tactics, our weapons designs. Proof that they can be defeated." Michelle worked quickly, packaging data from their resistance networks. 3 years of humanity's fight against the Vorn. She added schematics for hybrid weapons, details of Vorn biological weaknesses, and tactics that had proven effective. "It's ready," she said. "But to reach all their systems, someone needs to remain here to maintain the connection. The signal must stay open for 8 minutes." Outside the door, more Vorn forces were gathering. Andrew looked at his 2 remaining teammates, then at Michelle. "Get back to the shuttle," he told them. "I'll hold the connection." "Andrew," Michelle began to protest. "Earth needs people who know how to fight these monsters," he cut her off. "Take what we've learned back to our people." As Michelle and the others reluctantly headed for the escape route, Lieutenant Emma Johnson reached the communication array. She had separated from the group earlier and fought her way through the ship on her own. "I heard," she said simply. "Go with them, Captain. This is my post now." Andrew started to argue, but Emma's expression stopped him. "The Resistance needs leaders, Captain. I'm a communications specialist. This is what I was trained for." With a final salute, Andrew joined the others retreating to the shuttle. Emma locked the doors and began the transmission to every corner of the Vorn Imperium. As the message went out, Major Stephen Harris, who had remained behind to guard their escape route, sacrificed himself to hold off a final wave of Vorn soldiers. The shuttle escaped just as the command ship systems began to fail completely. From the viewport, Andrew watched as lights flickered across the massive vessel. Emma's voice came through once more on their communication system. "Transmission complete. We did it." The final message that echoed across thousands of worlds contained these words: "We may fall, but you'll regret this war. The species you thought would be easily conquered will be your downfall." Months later, a small ship carrying 20 humans left the solar system, heading for stars where other conquered species might be waiting. They carried with them Earth's legacy, the knowledge of how to fight back. Behind them, reports already spoke of uprisings on a dozen Vorn-controlled worlds. Humanity had not just survived. They had changed the fate of a galaxy.